Well, let's go down to brisket country, shall we? Let's go down to the Texas State Fair. They're frying everything. I'm sure you could find fried brisket. I tell you what, I think the Sooner fans would like to find all the fried beer they could because this one was it wasn't over.
Were they selling
early.
fried quarterbacks?
It wasn't over early, but you could tell which direction this was going. And Garrett, we were all talking in our group text. Trey took the Sooners here. He was trying to give the case for why Oklahoma was gonna cover here. And I think after 2 or 3 drives, once Quinn completed a forward pass, it was like, yeah, now I think it's going to be over. And sure enough, 34-3. Tyler, we'll give you the first crack here. Ahead of the game, hosting Georgia, what did you take away from this Red River rivalry at any point? Because it felt like after maybe the first quarter, like I said, you could just kind of see, I don't know that Oklahoma is going to give much of a real concerted effort here.
Yeah, Quinn came out, did exactly what he did last year in the Red River game, and he threw a pick, and that was the only way that Oklahoma was going to be able to keep this game close, was to get turnovers and win the turnover battle, and they couldn't even turn that one into points. And you kind of knew, even almost then, like this, you could be in trouble here, and Texas didn't score for the first quarter. They go on that avalanche in the second quarter where they score a touchdown, they get the ball back, then they have the fumble recovery for the touchdown, Hawkins fumbles, very next play, another rushing touchdown. So it just kind of hit Oklahoma like haymakers all at once. And I think from that point on, Sark looked over at the other sideline and he saw Michael Hawkins as a quarterback. And he's like, we're not going to be beat. I mean, they may get another touchdown. They're not going to put up enough points to beat us where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. We got Georgia next week. So I'm not saying he, just kind of rested his guys, but like, let's just call vanilla plays. Let's just get ready for next week. Make sure everyone's healthy. If you got any sort of like, tenderness in your hamstrings or whatever, get on the bench, get some ice on it. I think he just played it pretty safe. I've always been worried about Texas next week because they've always played terrible after the Red River shootout. And then, of course, this year it's Georgia. So, their season is going to come down to the regular season is going to come down to that game next week. And so I think, obviously it's a big win. I mean, anytime you beat Oklahoma, anytime you beat your rival, but, I just think it was a pretty easy effort today for Texas to taking home a 31-point victory.
I think what was most impressive from this was Trey Wisner coming out of the woodwork, right? And the broadcast was talking about why hasn't he been the starter the whole year? 13 carries, $118 and a touchdown. It felt like any time Texas needed a first down, anytime they needed an explosive play, like after a turnover, you have the Taylor Tatum fumble, the Michael Hawkins fumble, just hand it to Wisner and he's going to find the end zone or at least get you down close to it. I think Texas is going to need that running game next week and certainly the rest of the season to continue to protect Quinn, because early on when Oklahoma knew, okay, Quinn's going to have to make a statement here, we're going to pin our ears back and go get the quarterback, they found ways to make him uncomfortable. As good as that Texas offensive line is, when the Sooners early wanted to go get after Quinn, they could make him uncomfortable. Now, it's not like Texas has a gauntlet of a schedule the rest of the way, but Georgia this upcoming week, Texas A&M at the end of the season, that's obviously shown they can get after the quarterback. And then once you're into the playoff, hopefully our system is designed in which, the teams that make it might know what they're doing as far as a pass rush element goes. So I think that was the biggest win for Texas. I think health is another big win. Jake Majors goes down at one point with what looked like it was going to be a gnarly tweaked knee, and Texas was going to lose their center for a second consecutive year in the Red River rivalry. He ends up popping right back up. So I think the health in a running game for me, and maybe a bonus, the fact that Georgia looks extremely mortal. I mean, we'll talk about their game in just a minute in much lesser detail, but holy cow, if Texas can just focus and not allow a hangover to hit for too many days after this win, I think the Longhorns are all systems go.
I want to go with you on that. The only thing that I'm kind of watching Texas, but I'm not concerned. I'm not saying that this is a fault in Texas, but something to keep your eye on is the slow starts, right? Like they didn't start very fast against Mississippi State a couple weeks ago. That game was like 14-3 late in the third quarter. I know they scored before the quarter was out, but that was 14-3 pretty late in the third quarter with them. And then they turned it up, and it didn't look very competitive against Mississippi State. But that game was closer than it looked for a while. And then again today, I know Quinn was coming off the injury, and that was something we brought up was game speed versus practice speed, and then your shoulder feeling good versus like what happens when you get hit the first time. All of that stuff, right? Everything about feeling good and the abdomen and everything. Like we knew he was going to come back out there and he was going to have to get back up to speed. It was just a question of how fast he throws the early pick. You maybe start to worry. And they were kind of slow for the first quarter, not good. They score the touchdown, but then not a whole bunch else in that second quarter until those last couple minutes where everything spirals out of control for Oklahoma. And, it's fumble city. And then, go chase that ball in the back of the end zone and fall on it for the touchdown. And, that was very quickly out of hand for Oklahoma, when I think a lot of Oklahoma sideline are saying, all right, well, let's just get off the field right here and, maybe take it into the half as a 4-point game. And all of a sudden it was 18 points. You're in the hole. Thanks for coming out. I'm a little concerned about the slower starts for Texas. They're going to have to get off to faster starts because they can't get down to Georgia. I don't think that if they fall in a hole and become one-dimensional, they can go down to Georgia and find the comeback, right? We haven't really seen them play from behind this year. And so if Georgia comes in there and lights it up in the first quarter and Texas looks up and it's 14-0, that may be a place where we have to say, well, is Texas in trouble? Where do they go from here? And maybe they can. I don't know, right? I'm not saying that this is a problem, but it's something to keep your eye on with this Texas Longhorns squad. When they're playing well in that second half of the game and when they really find their stride in that middle part of the game, it is all systems go, like you were saying. Like they're off to the races, name your score, right? It's just about how long it takes to kind of click that in. I don't know if that's a coaching thing. I don't know if it's the players on the team and, finding the fit or whatever it is, but they're going to have to get off to faster starts against a team like a Georgia or against, an A&M at the end of the season.
The first quarter when they trailed 3-0, that's the only time this season they've been down. They've led every other opponent the entirety of their game. Tyler, I don't know if you're concerned about that. I mean, again, Georgia, I don't know that they've lit the world on fire. I've got a number of concerns about the Bulldogs. But no doubt, Quinn showed some rust today. I thought he worked through it, though, by the time the game was over.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with Georgia. Like, they're not necessarily starting fast either. It was 3-0 through the first quarter of their game against Mississippi State. Obviously, we saw how they started against Alabama. So that first quarter definitely will be interesting next Saturday night. But yeah, I mean, I kind of expected a little rust from Quinn, obviously coming off the injury, but again, I just think it was such an easy cruise to a victory for Texas today, which you don't normally see in the Red River. And it was kind of strange. And they just, you look on the other sideline and man, at one point I was just feeling so bad for Oklahoma's defense. And I know they just kind of got bludgeoned there at the end of the second quarter, but I mean, they were hanging in there and just getting absolutely no help from their offense. Obviously, they had all the top 5 wide receivers out, which is a killer. Yeah. But when you don't have a guy who can even attempt to throw the ball down the field and try to push the ball down the field, that's just a major issue. And I know they had another guy sitting on the sideline over there that, he plays in a game against Tennessee, who's a good team. And he had the deer in the headlights look. Maybe he's learned from that. Why not give that 5-star, the guy you believed in during fall camp from the beginning, game 1, why not try to go back to him when you're just not getting anything from the other guy? I didn't understand it.
That was my final question for this game is what on earth was behind the decision to not go back to Jackson Arnold? And I put that out on Twitter at one point. I think there was a Sooners fan, said, the wide receivers aren't getting any separation. It won't matter anyway. To me, that's if your head coach is thinking like that, that is the ultimate loser's mentality. Oh, well, we're getting beat on the perimeter, so what's the point? You got to try something different. And that reverse counter that Oklahoma kept running where they sprint one way and then hand it to the running back going the other way. Like, how many times was that actually supposed to work? Because it felt like Oklahoma went to that well like 25 times over the course of this game. They had no downfield passing attack. Hawkins had no idea what to do with the football anytime he got outside of the pocket. Like, it was like the ball was strapped to his hands. If it wasn't a first read, get the ball out immediately. He had no eyes downfield looking for wide receivers. He kept running out of bounds way behind the sticks when he could have just thrown that ball away. To me, and again, we're not in those meeting rooms. We're not at practice. We don't know how Jackson Arnold is handling being benched. But when the broadcast is saying, yeah, we talked to the coaching staff and he's preparing like he's the starter and he's engaged and he's in every meeting and he's taking every rep like it's a game rep, what do you have to lose? You lost by 31 to your biggest rival. You got a flag planted on a jersey of yours at midfield. Like, how is giving Jackson Arnold a chance to rectify that in the third quarter not at least an option? And he got asked about that. Venables did in the post-game press conference. Did you ever consider going to Jackson Arnold? No. They were going to ride or die with
it was
Hawkins.
the same at the half. They asked him at the half. They sent whoever it was on the side. They sent her down there to go ask him. And she's like, you're going to make a switch? And he's like, no, he's our guy. And what that
when he said he's done okay, that was literally, he kind of shrugged. He said, no, he's done okay.
But here's my thing. That either tells you that, number one, there's something that they're not telling us because it's an internal professionalism thing. Like, Arnold's got a serious issue with him that's not going to get fixed, and that's why he's not playing, right? It could be something like that. Or this is just like coaching malpractice to not even try something different.
Yeah, I mean, Herbie on the broadcast said from everything like you guys are talking about, from everything he has heard, he's been involved in everything. And so it was just weird. And yeah, to not even give it a shot, it's head scratching.
Gracious, how about